This poem is called Castaway. I did not want to write a poem full of corpses, so I wrote a sacred pink blue sky jeweled on the horizon. Laughter as the loudest star sleeps, humor hugs every ache whole. How heavy heads lay after a long day in the humid heat, Caribbean moon sighs and joyous dreams. I did not wish to speak of what should not be spoken, so silence breathe into all the words a haunting. I come from a language that does not write itself. Our ancestors speak hurricane, a thunder tongue shivering tides and a petty revenge. The mid-Atlantic is a vexed auntie rattling rivers and roofs, ready for reckoning, knocking at the chest of men. On the other side of now, there is a door where we return. Every island is a hip swing between here and there, afloat in the dance to belong, rocking in the arms of the edge, where the sea is an emerald flag and palm trees praise the air. Every shore is an altar of remembrance, embraced on purpose, picnic of the sun ray where prayer trembles the light, or how a storm retreats. We marvel and move eternal, unforeign, unlost, hips hollering, elbows flapping like fanning flames, bare feet chant in the sand or in a concrete jungle. Love taps quake the nape of the earth's neck where daughters of diaspora dream. How my grandfather came to see about us years after he died, wearing my uncle's face, dimpled and shining eyes like two wet black beans baptized by a spirit, rum slapped on his breath, charming man in all he was, checking on his grandbabies. Fear not death. Fear not death. We visit kinfolk there. We come and still, to arrive before they could conquer us. We came by shipwreck, by wind and wave, pushed into the water, splashing and shaking the wound, teaches us to remember where tomorrow glows. Listen for the animal clawing within. A rooster calls directions between this world and the next. There are roads that cannot be mapped, and there are streets that do not have names. We ran away into the ochre-tinted mountains, seeking maroon hills. I was born borderless, mounting a dollar van like an Orisha, scribbling visions on a train or in an airport, traveling ritual, voice, and time. I was born of distance, in between now and then.
Whoa. That's beautiful.
Thank you for asking me to read a poem. I appreciate it.
Listen, I should be saying thank you.
Aww.
So welcome to the show. This is The Couch. My name is Ama Pratt. Thank you for staying with Pan-African TV from morning till now. Now, this lovely lady that gave us that lovely poem is Aja Monet. I'll tell you a little bit about her. She is of Cuban Jamaican descent. She's from Brooklyn, New York. She is known to be the youngest poet to have ever become the Nuyorican Poets Cafe Grand Slam champion at the age of 19 in 2007. Where was I in 2007? Okay.
A long time ago. I don't know why that's still in the bio. Shouldn't be in there.
And is the last woman to have won this title since. Monet is also known for her activist work and has been an active participant of the Say Her Name campaign, which has highlighted police brutality against black women. She's a contributor to the 2019 anthology New Daughters of Africa, edited by Margaret Busby, with poems about love and intimacy as a primary aspect of freedom fighting. We're going to talk about that. I love that. However, Aja Monet, when Aja Monet was 19 years old, she was the youngest popular writer of Nuyorican poems, Poets
Cafe.
I think it's the same thing.
Yes.
She committed to her talent and her certificate of Bachelor of Arts. Another one, MFA, goes on and on. She has published 2 ebooks, Black Unicorn Sings in 2010 and Inner City Cyborgs and Ciphers 2014.
Yeah, that's an old bio. Woo,
this is old.
Yeah. So the most important thing is I have a book of poems. My mother was a freedom fighter, which is out on Haymarket Books. And then I'm currently the artistic creative director of an organization called V-Day, where I just directed a play, an audio play that launched here in Ghana this past Sunday called Voices. And the whole purpose of the play is to use art and solidarity making to end violence against women, girls, and the planet. And we'll end there. I think that's the most important. Yeah.
That's the good stuff.
Yes.
It's a privilege to meet you.
Oh, thank you.
It's a privilege to meet you.
It's a privilege here.
Absolutely. And you embody a lot of the things that I like. There's literature in there, there's music, all the things that make the world go round. But perhaps most importantly, there's activism, right? There's activism. Now I'm confused as to where to start this conversation from. Let's start from the poem. Give us because they normally say that for poems, you do the appreciation of the poem yourself. No, I have the person who wrote the poem here. So help us understand the poem that you just read for us.
The poem is a poem that I wrote originally for an art exhibition that was happening in Florida at the Perez Art Museum, where a bunch of Caribbean writers were gathered to talk about what the other side of now could look like if there was an alternative to the current time that we're in. And so I thought about what would a return look like, that perhaps there was a time when we didn't have to return, maybe that on the other side of now, we were already where we need to be. And so the poem, charts the trajectory of, I didn't want to write a poem that was talking only about our suffering, but also celebrating the traditions and rituals of our brilliance in spite of what we've gone through, and the magic and the spirituality of being African in this place of the in-between, this place of kind of never truly belonging, but belonging in that unbelonging. So it's it's a metaphor of many of those experiences, the spiritual experience of being in the in-between.
Right. And that's why you speak about scars that smile.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That was just like, because I can understand in a way how in a poem like that's a real thing. Like
Well, the way that our joy is also a part of what deepens our joy is the things that we've endured, the sadness that we've also experienced. So, life is a life of many things, many experiences, and we know who we are because we know who we are, and we know love because we know what it's like to fear. We know,
have love.
It's the dimensions of reality, and sometimes we want just the good without having to acknowledge the bad. But sometimes the struggle deepens our joy and our freedom.
That makes absolute sense.
Yeah,
it makes perfect sense. Okay, so as I was reading this old bio, this is about love and intimacy as a primary aspect of freedom fighting. It caught my attention. You need to explain that.
Well, something we're here trying to emphasize that I think is Pan-African is around, what do our freedom movements look like when they are honoring the feminine and the sacredness of the feminine, and the feminine shows up in both men, women, and those in between. It's not unique to just women. And so how can we in our freedom movements honor the feminine and what it has to teach us? And one of the things we learn from the feminine is emotional intelligence and the importance of love and intimacy. And sometimes we think that when we're in conflict with each other, when we're in struggle with each other, that we see that as a negative thing. We see it as a problem. But I think the cause or the thing that I believe in or that I'm trying to share is that conflict is the highest form of intimacy. So we need to lean into the moments where we are in conflict or disagreement or misunderstanding. And if we can meet those moments with love, compassion, and a willing to learn, then I think we can truly get to the place that we want to see in the world, which is a place of, freedom and maybe not harmony, but yes,
with freedom comes harmony.
Yes, close to that, as close as possible as we can get to that. Balance. I think balance is really important, and so love. A lot of times in our freedom movements, we celebrate the very masculine, hyper masculine, militant mode of being in the world, and so we're asking, well, like Otis Redding, try a little tenderness, you know? What does it look like for our movements to be rooted in the concept of tenderness, of love and intimacy, and that we don't shy away from conflict or struggle, but that we lean into it so that we can get to the place we want to be.
Fight's nice to get perhaps to be more effective. If that's
strategic. It's strategic.
Right.
What worked before is currently not working.
It's not working. We have to
try something else. Hopefully.
Right. But yeah. And I've never. And I was telling you that I've never, ever, or I would never have equated freedom fighting with love and intimacy. But now that you explain it, it makes perfect sense. Right. It's also just and to come back to your activism and the fact that your activism sort of is sort of geared towards agenda, you know, to look at this. So today, I had an earlier show before this one. The conversation then was the other side of feminism, and I was making the point that we tend to sort of put definitions in boxes. Like we talk about strength in the physical sense of the word. Meanwhile, there are other forms of the word. Right, where strength could mean just maturity, perhaps empathy, you know, and then we insist that men are strong and women are not, you know. So in the same way, I'm thinking about intimacy and love, you know, as a primary aspect of freedom fighting. In that same way, let me ask a funny question. Do you think, you know, as an activist, do you think that, and I'm so upset that you were not in that conversation. You should have been in that conversation.
I wish. It sounds like a great conversation.
It was a great conversation. Do you think that feminism as it is today, is fighting against itself? Because that was the view of the you know, Kojo, the guy that was on the show, my friend, my brother. You know, do you think that feminism, as pertains to just what it is today, because we all agree that it's sort of evolved over time to become what it is. Do you think that what is this now, fight against itself, cannot be effective, needs to be changed, needs to be tweaked?
I think people just need better political education, because if they really knew and really read feminist scholars and thinkers and organizers, they would know that feminism is actually our only hope. Feminism truly is the only thing that can get us to where we want to be. I think there's a lack of education around what does it mean to be a feminist, and I think that oftentimes there has been the media focuses on a specific performance of feminism, and so sometimes it can regurgitate or perpetuate the very toxic traits that masculinity can exhibit, and so people who call themselves feminists perpetuate the problem. And so then we conflate, you know, our disagreements with individuals with an entire movement, rather than understanding that individuals are individuals and they're flawed. But in actuality, feminism as a concept is inclusive of all people, and it's a world where all people are acknowledged, and the very foundation of the movement is really about making sure that we protect the land, and we protect those who are closest to the land and who have a relationship to the interior world, honoring the dimensions of our interior worlds as we think about our material conditions. That yes, we need food, but we also need, you know, visions, and we need imagination. Yes, we need shelter, but we also need songs and dance. Yes, we need, you know, education and healthcare, but we also need therapy and wellness and quality, quality relationships. That our relationships are the foundation of our movements. So if we are not treating the people who are closest to us with love, compassion, intimacy, and understanding, then what does it really mean when we say we think we're fighting for freedom, equality, and justice? What does it really mean if, you know, your mother cannot move freely in the world, if your sister cannot move freely in the world and love the way that she wants, and if men can't fully, you know, express the true scope of who they are? Exactly. That if they're only limited to being providers and protectors, there's more to men. Feminism says there's more to masculinity and men than being a protector or provider or someone who dominates.
Right.
That there's so much more to explore in yourself, that if you give yourself the opportunity to love and be loved, imagine who you can be in the world you can create with us, you know?
Right, right. And for me, feminism actually says you don't have to be this one thing. Right? Like, hey, I can protect myself.
Yes. And maybe if you let me live, myself. I wouldn't need you to protect me.
No. So protection from what?
Yes.
And from whom?
Yes. Why?
Exactly the why. The why. That why. It's so important. Oh dear.
Yeah.
I think we should have that conversation again, and you should be with us.
I'll be back
when we have that conversation. Which brings me to why you're in Ghana and how long you're in Ghana. And so let's start from I think you've answered the why. How long are you here?
I'm going to be here for roughly a few more weeks.
A few more weeks?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll make the show happen.
Yes. And I hope to return. I hope to continue to deepen my relationships with the organizations that I've worked with. I try to make a distinction between activism and organizing because they're both equally important. However, one actually really shifts our conditions and mobilizes people to change and do something. I think sometimes activism can be seen as very reactionary. So we're responding to something, and I would say that organizing is more forward and progressive in the sense that it is preventative. It helps us get to the point where we can have the foundation we need so that when problems arise, we know how to respond to them. And we're not just reacting, but we are also preventing problems from being created and being issues in our society. So we need more organizing, and that's part of what I hope to be a part of, is organizing women and men and those who are in solidarity with us to think about what does the world look like that we want to see? What kind of art is being created? What kind of conversations do we have? What does the space feel like and look like? So when we did the play just this past Sunday, we did it in the Bouquet Foundation, East Legon.
Oh.
Yeah, and it was really beautiful. We were able to work with so many incredible local Ghanaian organizations and artists, the LGBTQ Rights Ghana, Black Girls Glow, Tribe, Voices. There was a bunch of different organizations that we got to work with, and we wanted to make a space where people could walk into the space, and it was an inkling of the world we want to see. So we designed the space with so much intention. There was an altar in the middle of the space that was honoring and lifting up the names of women, African women, freedom fighters, organizers, thinkers, writers, artists. We had vendors that were all, Ghanaian vendors, mostly women, trying to support, hair braiders and, hair artists, visual art. Thank you. Ghanaian's own. So yeah, and then we had this experience where everyone had to listen to the play, and they had masks on, and it was really beautiful to see. I mean, hundreds of people sitting together, not on their phones, not drunk, just literally listening and going inward, but still being collective, still being together. And so what it does is it shows that we can love ourselves and be with ourselves while also still being with the collective, that the individual is not in opposition to the collective, right, and the collective is not in opposition to the individual. And so, especially at a time where social media is taking over so much of the young people's lives, we need to create events that get us to be present in our bodies with one another, which is, I believe, a feminist principle. So, yeah, that's why I was here. And I'm going to continue to build with these organizations because I want to see the world where Ghanaian women, Jamaican women, South African women, Nigerian women, everywhere, the women everywhere are loved. And we're fighting a crisis right now, a global crisis where the feminine is being degraded. So we stand in solidarity with the sisters in Iran and the sisters in Palestine and the Congo who are fighting every day just to be, just to exist. So that's a big part of what motivates us,
Right. Okay, so let's talk about a few experiences and then we can come back to activism, because activism is the good stuff for me. Since you've been here, besides the lovely braids that, I'm looking at, love it by the way. I think I've said that's the second or third time I'm saying that too.
Yeah.
I was asking about the music as well.
Oh yeah.
Because you are into poetry, music, and of course activism. So let's talk about the music.
Yes.
And I was asking for some names.
Yes.
Are you happy to?
I'm happy to share.
Share. Do share.
Well, I also have an album coming out next year, so I'm going to put that out there. Hopefully, Ghana will get to listen to it. It's a poetry album with jazz. Some incredible musicians. So I love music. Art and music is my entry point. That's how I learned about organizing, was through poetry, through songs, through dance, through theater. And so I think the way that I learn about any place, I always go and look for the artist. I think the artists are really, Harry Belafonte quotes Paul Robeson when he says, artists are the gatekeepers of truth. So I look for artists. Yeah, I like to dance and have a good time, but I also like artists that make me feel something, that make my mind move and my heart move all at the same time. So I really, really like some artists that are coming up out of Ghana right now. There's a artist, Walasi, who I like. I think is really dope.
We love Walasi.
Yeah, he's really.
We love Walasi.
He's doing something really interesting, and I hope Ghanaians continue to support him and lift him up as their own, because I think he's doing it with the right heart and mind in place. And I saw a show he did with this theater group from University of Ghana at the Alliance Française like 2-3 weeks ago, and I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen an artist be that intentional and that incorporative of so many different mediums in one performance. And it wasn't just about him, it was about lifting up so many local Ghanaian artists as well. So that was really cool to see. I think I love Kojo Q as well. Black Girls Glow is a collective that's doing really interesting stuff. Poetra, Fu, Rhea Boss, who's also coming up out of Ghana's local scene right now. She's doing amazing work. Manifest, good, incredible friend. And I don't remember who else I said. Oh, Kwesi Arthur.
Yes.
Yeah. I like his music. Black Sheriff, of course. I think what he's doing sonically is really interesting. There's so many, Jackie has some really cool songs, and it's been cool to see her rise in her career. And I want to see more. I just want to see more women doing their music and being supported by the men, being supported by the other artists, and not women that are just objectifying their bodies and praising men, but women that are raising questions and talking about their own selves and their communities. I want to see more of that. So I look forward to hearing and being able to uplift more of those voices.
Right. Okay. So here's the question. Because you are big on Pan-Africanism, we are big on Pan-Africanism here, and I love the fact that the arts is an entryway for you. You quoted beautifully, the arts being the sort of gates
keepers of truth.
Truth. Okay. So here's a conversation that I had a couple of weeks ago at WAPO, at the conference that the Socialist Movement of Ghana just organized with a few of the comrades from other countries, and the conversation was around how do you actualize ideology rather. How do you actualize ideology? For instance, this beautiful ideology of socialism, how do you live it in our music? How do you live it in our poetry? How do you live it when you work on TV like I do? How do I actualize socialism for impact?
That's a really good question. I think ideas are cultivated over time, and it's really important for us to recognize that culture precedes policy. In the words of another artist, Fabiana Rodriguez, she says that
I love
that culture precedes policy. So until there can be a culture that normalizes the need. I mean, Ghana, I don't need to tell you, but Ghana is struggling through a huge economic crisis, and it seems like it's going to only get worse. A lot of that is because the culture has been so that the music reflects hyper-individualism, capitalism, attaining more wealth, more money. So people believe that attaining more wealth and more money is the solution to their problems, to their social problems in their communities, rather than holding systems accountable and government institutions accountable to take care of the people's needs. Like, Ghana is one of the most resourceful countries in the world. Why are the roads not paved? Why is there not good sanitation? Why don't people have basic, education taken care of? Why do girls have to stay out of school when they get their period because they can't afford sanitary napkins? I mean, these are questions that Ghanaians have to ask themselves and then organize to create the sort of response and solutions that they want to see. It always is going to come from the people. It's never going to come from some random superman or woman that's going to solve everybody's problems. But I think that the way that happens is, organizing starts in small. It starts with few people. It starts with people who see an issue, see something wrong, and they do everything in their power to start to change and solve their issues. And Ghanaians have already so much heart and soul and spirit in taking care of one another. The people are really good at understanding, if I have, you eat. If you eat, I eat. And
communal.
So, communal, exactly. So understanding principles that are already indigenous to our cultures and our society, how do we celebrate and uplift and reward those examples? How do we reward people who do those things rather than just praising and lifting up the rapper that it's singing, and got millions
more
of
money,
yeah,
more
and just
money.
driving around with all their cars and houses. I think it's everybody wants to live nice. Everybody wants to have good things, but I think we need to change the notion that in order for you to live nice, I can't live nice too. That we can both live good, and more of us, many of us, the many can live well and good without needing to strangle the few, strangle the many at the bottom while the few stay rich at the top. Right. And so I think socialism has to be something that we embody in our day-to-day lives, and we try our best to do that because we still live in a society where we need to eat, where we need to put a roof over our head and provide. So I think that you can't tell hungry people what to do. Hungry people will have to decide what is enough, what the limit is, when it is enough. And I think as long as people continue to mobilize and organize together for the solutions they want to see, we'll get to where we want to go. Right. But it's not gonna be just one person, not just you or me or him. It's going to take many coming together, and we need to shift the culture so that the policies can start to change, so that it becomes normalized to say, hey, I can take care of, the system can take care of us. There's enough money in the GOP, there's enough money in this country, there's enough natural resources. Why are we giving them away for barely anything to other nations? Why is that not being regulated? What are Ghanaians benefiting out of some of the resources that are being exported and exploited out of the country? Right. And there's more than just natural resources that Ghana has to give. There's spiritual, intellectual, artistic, and a lot of that is also being drained into the church. And the greatest the greatest of our minds are being brought into religious institutions that are not indigenous to our countries, our places of origin, or our visions or ideas or practices or traditions. So how do we celebrate our traditions? How do we start to reimagine the way that we incorporate our traditions into our society and not demonize what is African, and then glorify what is Western or white, So as a Pan-African, that's been our struggle in the West, is how do we remember what we've been disconnected from? How do we reconnect? How do we mend wounds that have been created by colonialism and white terrorism and slavery, which is really all patriarchy at the end of the day? At the end of the day, if you want to be honest.
At the end of the day. But yeah. So just one last question on that, and that would have to do with form, And earlier we were having a conversation around artists that you enjoy, and immediately there's a trend in the artists that the artists that you sort of mentioned manifest clearly. Well, as clearly, I mean, in essence, music conscious music. So there's definitely something there. But back to my question about actualizing ideology, and that would have to do with the form and style, So you were asking a genuine question, and it's a question I've asked myself before, as to how somebody like Walasi hasn't blown, in Ghana, because he's just amazing, right? And then you'd have somebody that sings, and he's like
Huge.
He's a thing,
Yeah.
And so it comes back to the question of form. And I was saying to you that perhaps some other people have blown because, not to say that they compromised or not to say that they watered down their stuff, but just to say that they sort of collaborated, at some point to get some kind of attention, to be able to be authentic, if that makes sense. Right? And that's my question to you. For instance, in your poetry, in the way that you present, in the way that you do music, do poetry, do activism, do you, and that's a very personal question, do you ever feel sort of the need to, what's the word? Sort of acquiesce, would that be a better
Or compromise?
I don't like compromise.
Yeah.
I don't like, because compromise means
Me either.
Dilution.
Yeah.
I don't like compromise. But you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think what we've understood in our movements and when we think about organizing is that we have to meet the people where they are, and so, but we also need to be invested in politicizing the people so that they can understand what they're actually digesting. So if the people if their spirit is low and the vibration is low, they're gonna be hungry for low vibrational food, right? They're gonna crave low vibrational food. So our hope is to create a healthier public, to raise the vibration of the public. And there's many ways we can do that. That doesn't just happen through the music, that happens through the education, that happens through the organizing of different ideas, that happens through the gathering. I mean, if you can organize a party for somebody's baby shower, or you can organize a celebration for somebody's graduation, then you can organize, right? It's about gathering people on one accord and using that gathering as an introduction to new ideas or values that we want to celebrate and that we want to honor among one another. And then it becomes uncool not to be thinking or moving with those values, right? It's like, how do you make it uncool to be selfish? How do you make it uncool to be individualistic? How do you make it uncool? Oh, it's very hard. But this is why organizing is not easy work, and this is why we need artists and we need cultural creators who are really understanding of the values and the policies we want to see in the world, because we see that culture has plays such a huge role in people's mentality and their ability to imagine or envision the worlds that are possible. So if they're seeing TV and they're seeing news and they're seeing music and they're seeing people driving with them with all these cars, it becomes more and more impossible for them to think, oh, something else is possible, that we can live another way, that we can do something another way. And that takes, people with courage. It takes courage to step out on a limb and move with faith and move with new and different actions outside of the norm. And I think once you can gather people on one accord, then we can start to change things. For myself, we know that collaboration is necessary. I think we always have to assess the climate and assess the landscape of the terrain that you're in. You can't be. We don't want to be stupid, We have to be strategic. If we want to win, we have to be strategic, because our opposition is strategic. And so I think we have to understand what collaboration looks like. And so long as the people, you can write all the twerk videos and turn up and go to the club videos you want, and songs and all that. I think if as long as you know where your heart is and you know what's necessary to change the conditions of your people, But I think at some point we have to we have to hold ourselves responsible for what we put out in the world. It's our responsibility to vibrate higher. It's our responsibility to gather on that vibration together and collaborate in that way. Right. And there's ways to do both. There's ways to, the greatest artist, I think an artist is about creativity, how creative you can be. So the better you are at being creative and getting someone who might not know that they're being, taught a new thought, to dance to that new thought, to turn up to that new thought. Like, what does it look like for our turn-ups in the club to be about our liberation, What does it look for that music and the...
Wouldn't that be a dream?
Oh, it is. It's on its way. It's on its way.
Right.
People are really, really doing amazing things, and the artists that are coming out of the continent and Africa in general it's profound. There's so much left to be seen that has not been seen, not been experienced. And there's a lot of things we will never see, that we'll never know, that will never be on a TV station, will never make it on a platform, but are doing the real difficult nitty-gritty work to shift the conditions of the people. And that's really what we need, We need all hands on deck.
On deck.
Yeah.
On deck. Good stuff. Good stuff. Now, only because you mentioned terrain, and assessing the terrain and not being stupid.
Trying not to be.
Trying not to be. How would you, and let's come back to feminism, how would you, and you've been here, this is not your first time, you've been here a couple of times before this, you've been here for a bit. How would you assess the Ghanaian terrain in terms of just watching us, just on the surface level? What would you say the Ghanaian situation is as regards feminism?
Well, from what has been shared with me, as an organizer, my job is to build relationships with people and to listen deeply to the issues that people need solved or find themselves struggling with. And I think that when I hear some of the women here in Ghana speaking about what they're struggling with, there's still a taboo around Ghanaian women having it hard. The people, a lot of men think, well, I didn't rape a woman, so it's not hard. They don't deal with the same level of oppression somewhere else. But just because the oppression isn't as bad as it is somewhere else doesn't mean that there's not still oppression, that the people aren't still struggling. And so I find that there's still things that are taboo to talk about, women's sexuality, for example, women's pleasure, consent around women's bodies, women's, freedom to love who they want to love. There's a huge issue in Ghana around LGBTQ rights and people being... Yeah, exactly. And it exists. People have been queer, have been loving different genders since the inception of time in the continent. But somehow that's seen as a Western invention that's come over. It's just that culturally we have a lot of work to do to celebrate and honor our own information and knowledges, our own forms of knowledge. And there's many forms of knowledge. Even with this language, this tongue that is, I had to learn, I had to struggle to use this language to approximate the ideas that I have in my mind and in my heart. But I know that this mouth, this tongue that I'm using to communicate isn't really indigenous to my people. But it's what I've struggled to learn how to use so that I can survive the environment that I'm in. And so I think women struggle to kind of go with the status quo so that they can survive where they are. So if it means that marriage will be the way to get them out of poverty, if it means that sex work will be the thing to get them to be able to have, decency in their lives, then they'll do whatever's necessary. But people don't look at the prostitution across Oxford Street in Osu and think, there's an issue with, sexism in the country.
No.
But it is. It's a real telltale sign of the gravities of, you don't see men running around walking down the street selling their bodies.
Individual women that just want money and have no morals.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they
Right.
We judge the conditions rather than do everything in our power to change them. And so I think you can't judge a decision someone makes when they are in a moment of need, and you haven't done everything to try to provide an alternative to that decision. So, we can judge women who have abortions, but are you giving women access to, protection and quality birth control?
And a woman just freely express herself sexually.
Yes. No, we don't. There's a lot of issues around that. I think Black Girls Glow is trying to create an album. They do have this thing, You're Cared For, I think, is this next project that they're doing. But they have also been doing songs where they bring into schools to try to get young people to learn about consent. And it's one small way of doing something to try to change, because all of this starts from young. A lot of these things start from children. So, I think providing opportunities for girls and boys to learn about each other from young and to be able to move freely in the world is really important. But there's so much I don't know. So I learn more and more every day while I'm here. There's so much I don't know about Ghana. So I don't want to be a spokesperson.
I'm still learning about Ghana.
Yeah. There's so much.
And I was born here and I've lived here.
Yeah, so much I don't know. But I'm honored to be in relationship with people in Ghana who have taught me so much about life and about myself. And I always say, I'm Ghanaian before slavery. So when you look at when I did the blood work, I was Ghanaian.
Really?
Yeah. Before
nice.
Before colonization. But
awesome.
Yeah. It's Ghanaian, some Nigerian in there, No,
let's just agree on Ghanaian.
Yeah.
Move in.
Well, we know what the Ghanaian jollof is. The food, I gotta say, Ghanaian food, Ghana food.
See?
Speaks to me.
Absolutely. And it's speaking to you for a reason.
Yeah. That's true.
Right. So, I've enjoyed this conversation. I hope that it's one of many conversations that we would be having.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You know that Pan-African TV is your home in terms of media in Ghana.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot.
Yes, absolutely. Being Pan-African being socialist, and being a creative. This is your space. So please, this is your home. I'm going to take your number. I have already actually.
Yes.
And we will be communicating and having. But before you leave, we've already spoken about jollof. You've made me very happy. I wanted on record that you said Ghanaian jollof is better than Nigerian jollof. Right? Good.
Yes. I know you African are real serious about, the jollof.
No,
the jollof.
It's a
Senegalese jollof is pretty good too, though. I gotta say, you can't.
Stop it. This was going so well. Like, why would you mess it up?
It's like that Ghanaian and Senegalese is kind of close. It's kind of close.
But we are winning.
Yeah.
We are winning. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I would want you to give final words. Any final words? Enlighten us about what you do, how we can get involved. I love organizing. I'm very big on organizing for all the reasons that you say, because like you say, that is the difficult part of making change.
Yeah.
But that's actually the real part of making change.
Yeah.
Because policy sometimes just stands to exist on paper and that's the end of it.
Yeah.
Right? It's everything else but what's on paper. For me, what's on paper should just be formality for what it is, but oftentimes it's the other way around. And so that is the actual way. And as Pan-Africans, as socialists, as people interested in changing, real change, changing this world, I'm always interested in how I can help. And I'm sure that the viewers watching us have the same feeling. How do we organize too? How do we get involved at the very least?
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. I think the first thing is for Ghanaians to continue to work among each other for the things that they want to see. When there's issues when there are issues that are happening in the country, people cannot see it as, oh, that's their issue, it doesn't affect me. We have to all be implicated and implied in the in solving whatever the issues are that we find in our communities. It will always come back to haunt you if you do not get involved. There are many organizations to get involved with. I think there are several organizations here on the ground that you should look into. Clearly, Black Girls Glow is one organization that uses art in an intentional way. There's still LGBTQ Rights Ghana that's doing incredible work. There's the Ghana Socialist Party that's doing incredible work.
Socialist Movement of Ghana.
Yeah.
Socialist Movement of
Yes.
Ghana.
Then there's, there's so many different organizations I can't list, but in terms of our organization, V-Day is an organization that is working to end violence against women and girls globally. We use art as our practice and our medium, our mode of organizing. V is for voices.org to find out more. We're on Instagram, we're on all the social media. You can shoot us an email at, I think it's V is for voices at vday.org or voices at vday.org. And I guess the biggest thing is to continue to support your local artists. The artists that are speaking to the issues that Ghanaians are actually dealing with, not just the party and the celebration, but continue to support artists. Show up, even if you don't have the money, let them know that you're listening to them, give them words of encouragement, because it's hard to continue to stay on the right path when you feel like no one sees what you're doing, when you feel like no one cares about what you're doing. So if you see someone doing good in your community, do everything to protect them, to support them, and to provide them in any way you can. Money's not the only way to support. It's just by showing up. It's just by letting them know and acknowledging that you see the work that they're doing. So I would say that that's probably the best way to get involved right now, is to organize around the things you want to see in your communities and gather to support them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is an honor.
Every time, not anytime, every time.
Yes.
Every time. Thank you. Thank you so much, viewers, for watching the segments on the show. We have been in conversation with Aja Monet. Do look her up everywhere you can. Follow her, on Instagram, Facebook, and she will be back in Ghana. So
Yes.
Once you follow her on those places, when she's back in Ghana, you will know about the things she's here to do, and then you can support the things that she does. But like I was saying before, organize, like she said actually, and I'm supporting.
Support this network.
And support Pan-African TV, yes, and the Socialist Movement of Ghana.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And you're very beautiful, by the way.
You too. We're beautiful sisters. Look at this.
Stay with us.
Well, basically, today is really important because for about 2 years we haven't had something like this, because we made an oath that we wanted to build a ville with a retreat that will house 100 children, and we just want to basically build an atmosphere where the children can come and get the same experience but be there for days, hours and weeks kind of things, So today has been really important because this is something that we haven't done for like over 2 years, and it's just brought back the memory of the vision and why we're actually here in Ghana, why we actually foundated our charity, and why we actually franchised Breckalicious and Vegalicious. I feel amazing. I feel blessed. I feel like great, innit? Alright, well, what is next? January 2023, we're going to be grading our land in the Volta on the lakeside, and hopefully our aims are we want to get our retreat built by at least March, April at least, and then after that obviously we'll follow on with the retreat. We're even asking people, that sees this video and that has interest, that can come on board and actually put up skill centers. Maybe they've got a skill that they can offer, and they'd like, through them, their own self, they'd like to build a skill center where the children are able to gain free skills. We're more than welcome to accept. Okay, well, the message that I would have for anyone from the diaspora: the first time I came to Ghana was in 2005. The first time my twin sister came to Ghana was in 1996. The first time my dad came to Ghana was in the 80s. And the only thing I could advise is, at the end of the day, with me and my twin sister, we've built something. We've built something where if we all join hands, you know, we can have one of the largest charities, restaurants, organizations, community centers going. What I would say that we should all join hands, support the charity, support the cause, support the restaurant, whether it's physically, financially, spiritually or socially, you know, because the more hands-on, then the quicker we'll grow and we'll be able to do more. Where today we fed 50 orphans, obviously if we had more donations and more help, we could have fed 100, even 150, even 200. But at the end of the day, we was limited. We didn't have many sponsors. But the few that we did have, may Allah bless them, may God bless them and give them the best of this life and the best of the next life. And all hands on, guys. For January, we're going to be building and the retreat. So anyone that wants to get involved, you know, you're more than welcome to get involved. And last not least, we're also starting a soup run. Twin Things charity is going on tour, so hopefully every month we want to feed 100 children starting from Circle. So we're going to have kind of like the same thing, an all day thing, but without the entertainment. We just have like a sound, play some music, the kids eat, and you know, the first 100 come, first serve, and then boom, we lock down, play 2 tunes, we lock down, and then we go to our yard and plan the next feeding. So guys, if you want hands on, inbox me. You don't know, DJ Layla Hunt. Yeah, we've got the plan. This is why I'm urging everyone to join hands, because a plan is just a plan, and you know, a promise is a comfort to a fool. So I can't even promise no one that, yeah, next year I'm going to feed you. But what I am asking is that people tune in, log in, you know, read about our organisation and even join hands, even if it's not financially, but you know, through support and help, you know, or even come and support our restaurant and buy a good food on. Well, my final message is, guys, join hands with Twin Things charity, because Twin Things charity is a smile, and a smile is charity. So my last and final message is join hands, come down, visit us, come and talk to us, network, see what's going on, and let's make a better Africa. Let's make a better tomorrow for orphans and street children. This is your girl DJ Layla Hunt, and I'm representing only the one and only Africa, Ghana.
That I've kind of partnered with Twin Things is because it's a charity that is close to my heart, and it's also a charity that it looks out for young children who are orphaned, who don't have parents, and it's important that coming from a diaspora from England, that I'm able to give back and help these young children just have a change for the day. You know, that it's not a normal day for them today. Today is about them being happy, playing, you know, eating as much sweets as they can and just enjoying today. So it's not like a normal day for them. So the whole plan of the Twin Things is in longevity is to build a retreat for these children to come learn a skill, learn how to cook different dishes, learn how to do basic things that they probably wouldn't learn in school either, but just to give them some different opportunities around, you know, like just being a normal child. You know, just because they're orphans doesn't mean that they can't have a childhood, and they can still do that. And Twin Things will do that for them. Eventually, in the long term, there will be somewhere for them to go, like a retreat, so they can spend the weekends away from each other. You know, so they're not just in a home environment. They can come out, play, just do things that young children should be doing. So my message to people in England is that, you know, we have way too much. Yeah, we live above our means, and anything that you can provide, I mean, clothing, toys, books, shoes, anything that you think that you don't need anymore, can always come to Africa and to Ghana. You know, I have too many clothes myself, so it's important that, you know, we can help these children. You know, they can also own their own stalls as well to sell clothes. You know, there's so much that we can give back from England, but we don't, and we should really give back. You know, we have so much more to offer. I mean, I'm very grateful. You know, I had both parents growing up. My daughter's got both parents, and I just think that it's important that, you know, that children that don't have parents, that we can show them some love and some affection, and just like I said, just to give them a different day. that it's not a normal day that they would look for. But yeah, today is a day for the children. Yeah, and I'm just humbled to do it. Honestly, I'm very humble.
So today is Boxing Day, and the holiday season is about spending it with family and friends and people that you love. Obviously, right now we're set up to celebrate with children that don't have the luxury to have parents or carers or people that can look after them. So today it's important for us to bring them into our home and treat them as our family, and set up games and sweets and food and drinks for them just to have a good time. So I grew up with my mum, and I think the most valuable thing about growing up with your parents is life lessons that they teach you. They teach you how to become a woman. They teach you how to, grow as an adult, how to pay your bills, what to do next with your education or your employment, your love life. Everything that happens to you in life, your parents give you guidance to be able to overcome those things. If you're not as fortunate to grow up having parents, sometimes when you get to those milestones in life, it can become very difficult not having anybody to talk to or to relate to your journey. So it's letting these kids know that they will always have a place to come and say hi, or I need help, or I need to talk. My advice for any young people that are growing up and they don't have the guidance of parents or carers or family is to know that you are loved by God. You are loved by somebody bigger than anybody that could bring you peace. He will bring you peace. So just make sure that you believe in yourself. There's a voice inside your head that will tell you you're not good enough, but you are good enough, and you have to follow that voice, outside saying, follow into the right path, follow into going to find education, going to find love, going to find life, and make sure that you enjoy life. So back home in the UK, I know that things are hard still, and we have food banks and we have things like that, but there's things that we have in our cupboards, in our drawers, toys that we don't use, kids' clothes that we don't use. All of those things, instead of just chucking them away, or you don't know where to put them, just send them to Africa, because there's many kids that will enjoy using the toys that your kids don't use, or enjoy wearing the clothes that you no longer feel are in fashion. So it's about just making sure that you're passing on love and you're passing on freedom for other people to enjoy those things too.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala rasulillah Muhammad, khatamun nabiyyin wa rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yes, this venue of feeding orphans is very, very meritorious in Islam. The fact that the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam was an orphan himself gives credence to being able to nurture and sustain those children who falls under that category through Allah's grace. So Islam recommends that we should at least have an orphan in the house. The house that is blessed is a house that has an orphan, or goats, the Prophet ﷺ is reported to have said. So it's very, very essential, very important in Islam when it comes to orphans. There's a lot of emphasis. And there's a story in the Quran, in Surah Kahf, about some orphans also that Allah secured their treasure. When Moses and Khidr was traveling, they came to a place and there were some treasures there for the orphans. And the story is very incredible, what actually happened. So Islam emphasizes on orphans. We should look after them, we should love them, we should cherish them. We should, give charity to them. We shouldn't take their inheritance when it comes to orphans. So there's a lot of emphasis in Islam on making sure that children who have lost their parents are taken special care of. So we congratulate Twin Things Charity for their continuous and great job in looking after the children in Africa, in Ghana in particular. I think this is either their 4th or 5th orphans party. So it's a continuous thing. It's not something that they've done once and they've forgotten the orphans. So Twin Things Charity policy is any meal that they've sold, a portion of the profit goes towards these children that you see here. So yes, they're actually putting Islam in practice in a tangible way in Ghana, in Accra, and we, congratulate them for this great effort, this great action. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, those who believe and do good deeds. And indeed, looking after the orphans is a very, very meritorious, a very, very auspicious, a very, very good deed. And we ask Allah to give them long life, to continue to do this work, and to bless the orphans as He blessed the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. In Surah Wad-Du'a, Allah says, did we find you an orphan and give you riches, make you a prophet? So inshallah, it's very, very good when you can feed orphans and make sure that they're okay. I think it's inevitable that people from the diaspora would be interested in assisting and helping brothers and sisters and the children in Africa. Alaikum salam wa barakatuh. Yes, I think it's in their heart to do that, but we need to have a level playing field so that people can come to Ghana. At the moment, it's quite difficult for visas, for documentations, to work harmoniously. So things like this will put people off. Although they have the intention, they'd like to help in education, in financing companies, making their companies, in farming. But due to maybe policies, immigration policies, need to be reformed, upgraded, so we can come here easily. You see, we should be able to come back to Africa, to Ghana in particular, easily, because a lot of our brothers and sisters, especially in Jamaica, are Ghanaians. They've actually have relatives here in Ghana. Me, myself, I'm from, my mother's side is Ashanti, so we can relate, to Africa spiritually and physically. But yeah, you're right. I think if people have the opportunity to come to Ghana, they can make a lot of difference in assisting, both educationally, financially, and we reciprocate. We can share, because we're learning from our brothers and sisters in Ghana a lot, especially culturally, historically. We went to Cape Coast a couple of weeks ago, and we learned so much from the lecturer, the guide. Taught us so much. So there's a lot we can share, but the government and people in authority need to make it more easily for us to return back, to repatriate back to Africa, to Ghana in particular. Yes, we appeal to our brothers and sisters wherever they are to, give to Jahiduna fi sabilillah, the amwalikum, to spend your wealth, assist the orphans, especially the orphans. It's great rewards, not only in this life, but when we leave this world. These children will grow up. We don't know what. One of them might be president or a minister or some important people. And we will benefit from whatsoever they'll be doing, you see. So we request and recommend and ask people to pray for them, pray for the organization Twin Things Charity to continue doing what they're doing for orphans in Ghana. And if you have some time, you come and buy a meal at the restaurant Breckalicious in Spintex Road, off the Spintex Road. But yes, you should try and support the orphans in any way you can, with your prayer, with your wealth, and if any event that is taking place, you can come along and give a helping hand, volunteer to keep them in order, although they have their madams and their teachers and people, but you could also participate and earn rewards. So please support orphans. Islam, Christianity, most religion emphasize this type of condition that we should help those who are in need, especially orphans, because they're children.